This podcast is a conscious effort to fight the impending darkness that surrounds us by filling that void with light. Here we focus on truths that surround us, whether found in myth, ancient text, scripture, literature, basically voices from the past and present. Together we will find the traces, pull the threads, and follow the sparks along the way. Welcome to Reflecting Light, and here is your host, Mandy Green.
Hello, my lovely listeners. Welcome to Reflecting Light. I'm your host, Mandy Green, and today we're going to talk about faith over fear. And I saw this meme today that had a bunch of kids in 1975 piled in the back of a pickup truck. And if you lived through that era, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then it said 2021. And it had a bunch of kids bubble wrapped, seat belted in with masks and helmets on. And I thought, I wonder if there is a correlation between how we were brought up and how we used to live. And my question is, are we perpetuating fear? Are we planting the seeds of fear in ourselves and others? And it led me to explore the topic of fear from a spiritual point of view. So today is all about faith over fear. In Hebrew, the word for fear is yareh, which means to be afraid of, but it can also mean to stand in awe of, or be in reverence or honor or respect of something. Oftentimes when we read about fear in the scriptures, it gets translated as fear, like fear God. But the essence of that is be reverent, stand in awe of all that the gods have done and do for you, even the things you aren't aware that they do for you. I guarantee there's so much more that we don't even comprehend that's going on behind the scenes to help us through this crazy mortal experience. The Greek word phobeo, a verb I should say, is the same thing. It means to be afraid or to be shaken to the core, but it also has the connotation of being in awe of, holding in great honor. So let's just throw that whole thing out about fearing the Lord and justice is going to come down like a swift, bludgeon to the head. Boy, I'm really getting into trouble here, aren't I? That doesn't mean to say that God doesn't have a judgment and that if you're not doing the right things or if you act contrary to the laws of God and are totally unrepentant about that you willfully serve the other master. Jesus is not the kind, squishy play toy we think he is sometimes. I would say the majority of everyone who's trying, who's striving, who even cares about their standing with God, that fear would be a reverence. It would be an honor. And of course, you're going to quake in the face of divinity. But what is the instruction of the angel? Every time, unilaterally, fear not. Fear not. The one time the angel doesn't say that is when it speaks to Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ. So if you want something interesting to study, go look at that. Now, my question is, fear seems to be a very natural state as a human, but is it divine? 2 Timothy 1:7 said, the Most High God, this is my translation, by the way, the Most High God has not given us the spirit of cowardice or timidity, but of power and divine love or favor and a temperate mind. I know that's a little different than your King James. But right there, that spirit of timidity, that spirit of, I'm not enough, I can't do this, I should shrink instead of rise. And right there, Paul says that you've been given divine power. Dynamis, that dynamite comes from that. I mean, let's pull out the Wile E. Coyote Acme boxes of dynamite that he's always ordering. It means tremendous power and agape, divine love and favor. You have their backup. You have their DNA. And the last element is a sound or temperate mind. I think this part lays upon us. I was listening to a talk this week, and I'll put it in the show notes. Very, very powerful talk that said your mind is like the land or the earth. The earth doesn't care what you plant in it. It will grow whatever seed you put in it. And so your mind is that times 10. And so whatever you put in it will grow. And so if you put fear in it, it will grow. And if you put a divine identity in there, it will grow. And if you say, I'm a child of heavenly parents, and I have their DNA, and I can rise to the occasion, that doesn't mean we don't ever feel fear, but that we do it anyway, that we don't let it control us, that we never get in the back of that pickup. Metaphorically, I realize this is not safety conscious, but I remember sitting in the back of those pickup trucks and loving how the wind felt just blasting against my face and moving around, or you'd lay down and watch the sky as you drove the miles. It's something to be experienced. And life really is about experience. In the garden, the instruction was that they would experience life and learn to prize the good from the bad for themselves. There's no instruction there of making it through there perfectly or not getting any harm or cuts or bruises. That was inherent in the task. The at-one-ment would cover all of that, but the assignment was to gain experience. And Eleanor Roosevelt, one of my heroes, certainly she did not have an easy life. She suffered from mental illness. She had great bouts of depression. Her husband was very unfaithful to her, and she still did such a tremendous amount of work for our world. And here's what she has to say. You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. You are able to say to yourself, I lived through this horror. I can take the next thing that comes along. She's such a great example of that to me. The poet Alfred Lord Tennyson, in his poem Ulysses, great poem, but the last stanza, I think, really personifies reflecting light. It's about seeking what we can find of what's left and gaining courage from that. Though much is taken, much abides. And though we are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are, one equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. I believe the Savior echoes some of those words by asking us to seek and find and knock and strive. The Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu said, there is no illusion greater than fear. And the South African president Nelson Mandela said, may your choices reflect your hopes and not your fears. How do we plant that garden in our mind that makes us of strong, heroic hearts and those who will take on a path of faith or a path of courage rather than fear? Now, fear is real. I feel it every time I get on a plane. In fact, I probably feel it 3 to 5 days before I go anywhere. I get that pit in my stomach. It's kind of hard to eat. I've done it enough times to know that on the other side of that terror is illumination. And I'm grateful for the experiences in my life where I felt that crazy fear, almost paralyzing fear, and found a way through it. Started as a missionary in the middle of Russia in 1994, and that experience taught me that you can see yourself through any experience. My mother-in-law, Michelle Green, is a great example of this to me. Her family was slaughtered in front of her face in Vietnam. She was 11 years old, and she saw her father killed, her grandfather. She saw her sisters abused, And you would think that that is an irrecoverable thing. And maybe I'll have her on and tell her story. But I'll never forget one day, my youngest child, Presley, was down there. She's probably 3 or 4. And she always liked to play with Grandma. And I went down there and Michelle was strumming this wooden angel harp and making this tling, tling, tling sound. And they were playing and laughing. And in that moment, I knew that nothing was bigger than Jesus Christ. I knew that a faith in Jesus Christ could overcome the worst, and I mean the very worst, that life has to throw at you. It's true, because otherwise this woman would not be able to smile and laugh and joke and play as she does. That's a wonderful lesson I've learned from her. William Wordsworth, in his ode on Imitations of Immortality from Recollections of Early Childhood, said, "What though the radiance which was once so bright be now forever taken from my sight? Though nothing can bring back the hour of splendor in the grass, of glory in the flower, we will grieve not, rather find strength in what remains behind." How do we find that strength? How do we assert that divine portion of our mind over this mortal fear? William Shakespeare, in his play Measure for Measure, said, "Our doubts are traitors and make us lose the good we oft might win by fearing the attempt." Let me read that again. Our doubts are traitors and make us lose the good we oft might win by fearing the attempt. I love that. Your mind can betray you, and the good you would win. It's not saying it's a guaranteed, here you go, here's your open present. It's that you have to win that good. You have to fight for it. You have to make the attempt. And there's something in that. Isaiah 41:10, and this is my translation, says, "Fear not, I am with you. Do not look away or be dismayed, for I am your God. I will make you strong, courageous, bold, and brave. I will help and succor you, and I will lay hold of you with the right hand of my righteousness." Now, when the Lord lays hold on something, he doesn't let go. If he will lay hold of you with his right hand, which is the symbol of might and power and lordship, that's the strongest hand that can lay hold of you. It isn't a grip that lets go or is forgotten or left behind. The author Kathleen McGowan wrote a series about Mary Magdalene, I would say, the bloodline. It's kind of an interesting thing. There's some very interesting points in there. Some I love, some not so much. But if any of you need some good fiction mixed with some research, it's entertaining. Sometimes I just need a good fiction book to break up all the nonfiction. But I was reading some of her old blog posts, and she wrote about Good Friday, and I wanted to quote her. "Elige magistrum, choose your master. It is the theme of this book, which took me 20 years to write and live, and a theme worth contemplating. Pontius Pilate allowed fear to be his master, and his resulting decision wounded the world for over 2,000 years. On this holy day of remembrance, I will vow not to make that same choice in my greatest life decisions. I reject the fear and trepidation that has haunted me for so long, and I hope you will join me in a similar choice. If that sounds right to you at this point on your journey, I will no longer wait for the other shoe to drop. I will remember that these fears belong to my past, but not to my future. My master will not be fear. My master is hope. My master is faith. My master is love. And if I can stand in that belief from this day forward, then it truly is a Good Friday." last night in my pain, I was watching the Fellowship of the Ring with my good husband. And I love Aragorn, let's be honest. But at the end, when he straps on Boromir's arm plates and decides to let go of fear, of control, of making sure that the ring makes it to Mordor, he realizes that he has to let it go, that the ring has this corruptible power over everyone in the party. And he lets Frodo go, and then he straps those arm plates on and says, "We will not abandon Merry and Pippin to torment and death." And he slides his knife in the sheath and says, "Let's go hunt some orc." Well, my friends, it's time for us to stand up and be brave. It's time for us to pull out all of those plants of fear that have been planted in our minds and our hearts. It's time for us to take on that divine identity, to take on the experience of life and hunt some orc. May you be brave. May you be strong. May you know that in every endeavor, and that's not to say you won't feel the fear, but feel the fear and do it anyway. Feel the fear and go forward. I know that illumination is on the other side of that beating heart and that queasy stomach and that jump into the darkness, that leap of faith. It really is there. And I hope that you will say, "My master will not be fear. My master is hope. My master is faith. My master is love." And to stand in that belief and go forward would be one of the most beautiful things you could do with your life. And I wish you luck and courage and the Spirit of God with you as you do that this week. Love and light, my friends.
Thank you for joining us. We hope this episode lit a spark inside of you. For show notes and other information, please visit our website, reflectinglight.org. And if you feel this program illuminated your mind or heart, consider making a donation to fund further episodes. Until next time.